no es nieve. Dos aviones.
Dos aviones. ¿Qué? ¿Dónde?
Es un camarón.
Alright, we'll leave it here for just a second. We're going to get some photos. I'll be back for you. Okay, what you can't see, that could only be the dark zone. There it is. You guys can get it. Light zone, dark zone. And then where we are currently is the twilight zone. So this is going to be the last point, right, where any natural light reaches our cave, any calcite that can be found in the limestone. Now we leave some of that calcite behind, it starts to build up, and eventually you get these soda straw formations. Alright, but these are pretty small, and they are the babies of some of the larger cave formations that you can find throughout our cave. So up next, we're going to take a look at some of those formations. We'll talk a little bit about it. Alright, lead us off. Soda straws, right? They form from water seeping into our cave, leaving behind that mineral calcite. Well, as more water drips through, more and more calcite is going to be left behind. It's going to continue to build, and eventually those small soda straws are going to turn into stalactites. Now, if you look right here, you'll notice an interesting kind of stalactite called a cave curtain. So you'll notice it's very thin, looks a little bit like drapery. Right? Now these cave curtains, they form from water seeping in at an angle in the cave ceiling. As the water continues to follow this uneven trail over and over again over time, eventually you'll get that very thin curtain-like formation. Now sometimes that water is going to be dripping so fast that it's going to go straight past that stalactite and end up hitting the ground. But it's still got some of that calcite left in it, so as more water drips, the calcite will build, and eventually guests how old they think these two formations right here might be. Anyone got a guess? You want to take a crack at it? 1041. Alright, so up next, we're going to take this next section. If you've got any arms, faces, noses, limbs that you value, make sure you keep them inside the tram so you can keep them for the inventory. Alright? Okay. So we're going to let, we got a tour coming up, we're going to let them pass us and move forward. Anyone have any questions for me? Before we move forward, while we sit here for a second. way back to the year 1862. The landowner at the time was a man named John Knox. John Knox was a hunter, and he had a little hunting dog whose name was Juno. One day in 1862, John Knox and Juno were out doing their thing, doing some hunting, and Juno started to chase a small animal like a rabbit or a squirrel. And Juno chased this small animal right into a tiny little hole that was sitting in the side of the hill. And immediately Juno was consumed by complete and total darkness. He couldn't find his way out. Now luckily it all ended well for Juno because John Knox was able to hear the sound of his dog's barking. So he located this hole on the side of the hill, found himself a lantern. And so that we can see the beauty of it today on the drive-through tour, the way that it was supposed to be seen. Right? Okay, now up next, we're going to be going to a section of the cave called Break. And you can see where those sections are. Alright, it broke off once on this ridge right here. It broke off a second time on this ridge right here. And then broke off a third time way at the top where it looks like a big footprint. Alright, now about 200 years ago there was an earthquake called the New Madrid earthquake. And this thing was so strong that it was ringing the bells in Boston, caused the Mississippi River to go backwards for a couple of days. A very powerful earthquake. For the longest time, people thought that that earthquake must have been what caused this breakdown. However, at the start of our tour, we were talking about our cave formations and how long they can take to grow. Right, 1 cubic inch every 100 years. So look at some of the formations that have started to grow on this breakdown. All through here and up there. And these formations tell the story that this is something that must have happened a very, very, very long time ago. So the most likely answer to if an earthquake that happened 200 years ago caused this breakdown is actually no. And the formations can tell us that. Now what's interesting is the way this section of the cave collapsed, it reached what is called the point of stability, where the ceiling is supporting the sides and the sides are supporting the ceiling. So if there were to be another New Madrid style earthquake, this would be a section of the cave that you would want to be in. It would be the most structurally sound. It's pretty cool. Now I don't want to test that theory, so I'm going to go ahead and drive us into the next section of the cave. Alright, we're going to go underneath this passageway right here, and when I do, you're going to see our heaviest concentration of stalactites. So as we drive underneath it, make sure you look up, because it is real pretty. Alright?
Yes, Papa?
Yes.
Papa. Yes,
Alright, so we're going to drive us back up into the rain shelter if you folks don't mind waiting.